Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're really digging into the details from day 23 of that ongoing federal case, U.S. versus Sean P. Combs.
That's right. And using the sources you've shared, our focus is, well, first wrapping up the cross-examination of the witness known as Jane Doe.
And then moving into some pretty significant courtroom action and new witness testimony that followed.
Absolutely. But first, that vital reminder. This is an ongoing federal case. Everyone mentioned is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty in court.
And a serious heads up, the details we're discussing today, taken directly from the sources, are highly sensitive. If this kind of material is triggering for you, you might want to sit this deep dive out.
Please do take care.
Okay, so our mission, as always, is to take the source material you provide and really drill down. We want to pull out the key insights.
Help you get fully informed quickly, beyond just the headlines. This is tailored for you.
Exactly. So let's get into day.
Correct. Day 22 wrapped up her time on the stand. The source material describes her as Mr. Combs' ex-girlfriend.
And her testimony overall was described as, well, intense, emotional, disturbing, and long.
Very long. And day 22, finishing the defense's cross-examination, was apparently no different. Still very intense.
The defense kept questioning her about specific incidents, didn't they? And the relationship dynamics.
They did. One thing they focused on was a trip she took to Las Vegas. That was back in January 2024.
Okay, Vegas. What were the circumstances there?
Well, according to her testimony, this happened when she and Mr. Combs were on a break.
Ah, one of the relationship breaks mentioned.
Yes. And she testified she flew to Vegas on a private jet. The source mentioned she was actually with a pretty well-known rapper and his wife on that trip.
So not exactly low profile. And what happened in Vegas?
At a party there, she apparently ran into someone called Anton.
Anton. Does the source say who he is?
It describes him as an entertainer, someone who had apparently been hired before by both Mr. Combs and Jane for what they called hotel nights.
Okay, so there was a prior connection through these alleged hotel nights.
Seems so. And the key point under cross-examination was that Jane apparently didn't tell Mr. Combs about seeing Anton right away.
He found out later.
Yes. He reportedly discovered messages about the trip, and her testimony described his reaction as exploding in anger.
Angry about what specifically?
He accused her reportedly of going to another man's freak-off.
Yeah.
That specific term again.
Right, freak-off. It keeps coming up in relation to these alleged hotel encounters.
It does. And the testimony, according to the source, touched on these cycles in their relationship, the breaks, and then her return.
The source mentioned people hoping she'd leave for good during these breaks.
Yes, but the testimony described her as often running right back, and sometimes that return was linked in the source's description to running right back to a freak-off. It suggests a pattern.
And she testified about why she kept going back, right? What was her explanation?
Financial dependence. She stated, under oath, that Mr. Combs allegedly used her financial situation against her.
How so? What was the specific claim?
She alleged he threatened to stop paying her rent, specifically when she resisted or didn't want to participate in the hotel nights.
Wow. Linking her housing directly to participation in those nights?
That was her testimony. She said she stayed much longer than she wanted because she felt trapped. Financially, but also emotionally and psychologically.
Just completely entangled, it sounds like.
That's the picture her testimony painted. And when asked why she was testifying now, she reportedly stressed it wasn't for money.
She didn't come forward voluntarily.
She emphasized she was subpoenaed, legally required to be there and testify.
That's an important distinction. And there was a powerful moment at the end, wasn't there?
Yes, the source highlighted this. She was apparently asked if she'd give back all the money she received if it meant not having had intercourse with those men.
And her answer?
Reportedly, just yes. A very simple, direct answer after days of testimony.
Okay. So that marked the end of Jane Doe's time on the stand. End of day 22, started day 23.
Right. And before the next witness came on day 23, there were some significant legal arguments happening.
Not straight into the next testimony, then. What were these arguments about?
One major one involves something called Device 1, a phone, it seems.
Okay.
The defense team tried to argue that messages from June 23rd, 2024 about finding this phone should be protected. Attorney-client privilege.
What were the messages actually about? Why did they think it was privileged?
Well, the source says the messages showed Mr. Combs finding this phone, thinking it was important evidence, and then asking a staff member for his lawyer's number.
So the defense argument was, this is part of seeking legal advice.
That seems to be the gist. But the government argued against it, and the court agreed with the government.
Why wasn't it privileged, according to the court?
The court's reasoning, reportedly, was that the messages just showed him asking for a number and sharing his discovery with staff. It didn't rise to the level of being for the purpose of getting legal advice. The staffer wasn't seen as essential to facilitating the legal communication itself, just providing contact info.
So the communication itself needed to be for legal advice, not just about getting ready to seek legal advice.
Exactly. That's the legal standard the court applied, based on precedent. The communication has to be primarily for the purpose of obtaining legal counsel.
And the result? What does that mean for those messages?
It means they're not shielded. The prosecution can use those messages about device 1 in court. That was settled early on day 23.
Okay. What other legal points came up before witnesses?
There was a request from the defense about a previous witness, Brianna Bongolan. They wanted a specific jury instruction.
What kind of instruction?
It's called a NAPU instruction.
Yeah.
Basically, it's where the judge tells the jury that a witness might have testified falsely about something important.
And if the judge gives that instruction?
The jury is told to consider that potential falsehood when they weigh the witness's overall credibility, how much to believe them, essentially.
And the defense wanted this instruction for Brianna Bongolan. What specific testimony did they claim was false?
They focused on her claim that Mr. Combs caused injuries to her leg, back, and neck all on the same day, September 26, 2016.
All 3 injuries, simultaneously on that one date.
That's what the defense claims she testified to, and they want the judge to specifically tell the jury that she said all injuries happened then, caused by him. But the defense asserts, according to the source, this is not true.
What's their proof or reasoning for saying it's not true?
The source says they cited photographs from that date, September 26, 2016, which apparently only show injuries to her leg.
Implying the back and neck injuries maybe happened at a different time or weren't caused by him on that specific day.
That seems to be the defense's angle. Pinpoint an alleged factual inconsistency to cast doubt on her whole testimony. It really shows how they're digging into the details.
Definitely. Was there anything else before the witnesses started?
Yes, quite a debate about which federal agent should testify about the pew-pews. The firearms found at Mr. Combs' L.A. home in March 2024.
A debate about which agent. Why did that matter?
Well, defense attorney Mark Nolo argued it should be the agent who was among the first on the scene and initially involved in recovering the items.
And the goal there, why that specific agent?
They wanted that agent to testify about exactly where in the security room the items were found. Nolo apparently stated they wanted the jury to hear the firearms were responsibly maintained by a professional security service behind a locked door.
Emphasizing secure storage, basically. How did the prosecution see it?
Prosecutor Maureen Comey pushed back a bit. She suggested it might not be practical or even possible for an initial clearing agent to know the exact spot for every item.
Why not?
She explained the protocol. The first team in, the SRT or Special Response Team, their job is securing the place. They don't usually catalog evidence on the spot. That's done later by the search team.
So the initial agent might not have those precise details the defense wanted.
That was the prosecution's point. It's a procedural reality of large searches.
How did the judge handle that?
Judge Subramanian ruled that an agent could testify about the firearms found in the security room. He noted the room had a G-safe.
A gun safe.
Presumably. And importantly, the judge said the defense would get a full chance to cross-examine that agent.
So testimony allowed, but defense can still try to get their points across during cross-examination.
Exactly. So those were the main legal points tackled before the jury heard any new testimony on date 23.
And the day itself had some other sort of courtroom color.
It did. It started a bit late, apparently. Court didn't begin until 9:46 a.m.
Nearly an hour late.
Yeah, Judge Subramanian reportedly joked with the jury, "We were only 50 minutes late today," and smiled. A little moment of levity.
Who was there supporting Mr. Combs?
The source mentioned his mother was in court, reportedly the only family member present. He apparently said hello and blew her a kiss.
Okay. And before the first actual witness, the prosecutor introduced some exhibits.
Yes, under seal. Text messages. One set was reportedly between Mr. Combs and Christina Korm, his chief of staff, from November 2023.
What were those about?
They reportedly showed Mr. Combs instructing Korm about Jane's rent. He wrote something like, "Make sure Robin isn't doing anything dumb, like not having her rent paid on time."
Robin being the accountant mentioned earlier.
Yes. Jane had testified Mr. Combs paid her rent via this accountant, Robin Greenhill, from 2023 onwards. He followed up in the text, "Make sure it's paid for this month, please."
And Corum's response.
She reportedly texted back that Robin confirmed it was paid.
That seems like direct evidence from him about paying her rent, supporting her testimony on the financial side.
It certainly appears to corroborate that specific arrangement. Then there was another text exchange introduced, this one older, from 2017.
Who's involved in that one?
This was reportedly between Cassie Ventura, who was Mr. Combs' girlfriend at the time, and Drock, part of his security team.
What did those messages say?
Ventura reportedly texted Drock that her bathroom door was broken. She also mentioned Mr. Combs was blaming her for going to someone else's house, that she felt unsafe, and that he had her keys. Later, she reportedly texted that 3 doors were broken.
3 doors broken. That's security's response.
Drock apparently replied he couldn't take the keys from Mr. Combs and suggested she stay where she was since Mr. Combs was at the other location.
That's from years ago, but introducing it now, maybe trying to show a pattern.
Potentially. It seems aimed at providing broader context for the jury about relationship dynamics and alleged behavior, even if it's from an earlier relationship.
Interesting strategy. But maybe the biggest event before the witnesses was the juror dismissal situation, right? Juror number 6.
Absolutely. That was a major focus. Judge Subramanian addressed the prosecution's earlier request to dismiss this juror.
And the prosecution's concern was?
Lack of candor. Basically, concerns that the juror hadn't been entirely truthful with the court. The issue centered on where he lived.
What were the inconsistencies about his residence?
Well, Judge Subramanian laid it out, according to the source. During jury selection, the juror said he lived in the Bronx with his fiancée and daughter meeting the residency rules then.
Oh, okay.
Later, he apparently mentioned spending 4 to 5 nights a week in his New York apartment. Then, later still, he apparently said he'd moved to New Jersey in the last 2 weeks, living there with his daughter and girlfriend.
So, Bronx with fiancé, NY apartment some nights, moved to NJ with girlfriend. That's quite a few different versions.
It is. And these inconsistencies apparently came up not through formal questioning, but just through friendly banter with jury staff.
Really? Just chatting?
That's what the source says. The staff, realizing the potential issue with qualifications and candor, quite properly informed the court.
What was the defense's take when this first surfaced?
Initially, defense attorney Mark Nipolo had apparently said it didn't seem like an issue anymore and described the juror as diligent and engaged.
And the judge addressed a previous defense claim about bias.
Yes. A defense lawyer had earlier suggested the prosecution was trying to get rid of a black juror. Judge Subramanian reportedly pushed back hard on that, saying there was zero evidence of any bias from the prosecution here.
So the judge shut down the bias claim. How did the prosecution then argue for dismissal based purely on the inconsistencies?
Prosecutor Mitty Steiner argued the juror made statements that cannot all be true. Given the conflicting residency stories, she said the most prudent thing was further inquiry to clarify things.
But the defense didn't want more questioning.
No, defense attorney Alexander Shapiro argued more questioning would be harassing, make the juror feel targeted, and significantly, Shapiro said the defense would waive the issue on appeal.
Meaning they wouldn't challenge the juror's status later if the verdict went against them.
Correct. A strategic move. And when asked if Mr. Combs agreed to waive, he apparently waved his arms and said, "Waiving your honor."
So he personally confirmed the waiver. How did the judge decide? Did he question the juror more?
He considered it. He reportedly said there might be an innocent explanation. But ultimately, he decided against more questioning and ruled to dismiss juror number 6 permanently at the end of the day.
What was his full reasoning? It sounds like it went deeper than just where the guy lived.
It did. The judge focused heavily on candor, on truthfulness. He went through the inconsistencies again: Bronx fiancé, NY apt nights, NJ move girlfriend. He said while they might seem trivial, they raised serious doubts about the juror's basic qualifications and his honesty.
Because residency is a qualification, right?
Yes. But the judge stressed the changing answers and inconsistency gives the court worry about deception and lying. And that worry, he explained, undermined all the jurors' answers during selection.
Even answers about bias or ability to judge the case fairly?
Exactly. If he wasn't truthful about where he lived, could the court trust his answers on more crucial matters? The judge felt this lack of candor was so fundamental that removal was required.
That's a strong stance, based squarely on the inconsistent statements and the implications for his truthfulness overall. How did the defense react to the final decision?
Attorney Xavier Donaldson reportedly expressed disappointment, specifically noting the juror was black and raising concerns about representation on juries.
So, raising the diversity issue again, even though the judge's reason was candor,
Right. The judge's stated basis was purely the inconsistency and resulting concerns about truthfulness.
And in the middle of all this courtroom drama, there was a visitor.
Yes, a rather notable one. Kanye West made an appearance. Arrived around 11:28 a.m.
And apparently made quite an entrance.
According to the source, yes. Reportedly said, New York is not a real place, and tell him the truth, bro. Tell him she was a freak as he walked in.
Wow. Tell him she was a freak. Presumably aimed at Jane Doe. Saying that walking into the courthouse.
It's definitely a bold statement in that context. The source noted his all-white outfit security detail. He sat with defense lawyers Westmoreland and Donaldson.
Was he there long? Did he confirm he was supporting Mr. Combs?
Reporters asked if he was there for support, and he reportedly nodded yes. But he only stayed about 40 minutes before leaving.
A brief but very public and vocal display of support.
Indeed. So after all that, the legal arguments, the observations, the juror dismissal, the court finally got to the next government witness.
Who was that?
Special Agent Leone from HSI Homeland Security Investigations based in Los Angeles, their human trafficking unit.
And his connection to the case.
He testified about executing the search warrant at Mr. Combs' L.A. property, 200 South Mapleton Drive, back in March 2024. He has experience, mentioned doing 50-60 warrant executions.
So he was part of the team that searched the house.
Yes. He confirmed he executed that warrant, which was requested by HSI New York for this case. He described the property as large, mentioned a sauna, recording studio, said all rooms were searched, items seized and logged, confirmed floor plans shown were accurate.
Okay, let's get into what he testified they found. The sources seem detailed here.
Very detailed. In a nightstand, he testified they found 6 manila envelopes.
Just envelopes.
Well, a stipulation and agreed fact confirmed one envelope, marked K with a shamrock, tested positive for ketamine, an illegal substance.
Ketamine in the nightstand. What else? Was there a safe?
Yes, in a closet. He described a gray safe. A photo was shown. Inside, they found Mr. Combs' passport and a plastic bag.
And in the plastic bag?
Various substances. Another stipulation confirmed brown pebbles from the bag tested positive for MDMA, another illegal substance.
MDMA, also known as ecstasy or Molly. So illegal substances in the nightstand and the safe. What else was in that bag in the safe?
According to Agent Leone's testimony, the bag also contained Johnson & Johnson baby oil, Astroglide lubricant, and some lingerie.
Baby oil and Astroglide. Were those found anywhere else?
Oh, yes. He testified they were found in multiple places. In that bag, yes, but also in a bathroom and quite a bit in the garage.
How much is quite a bit? Did he specify quantities?
He did. He described a bookcase in the bathroom full of baby oil and a drawer full of Astroglide. And in the garage, 24 boxes marked Astroglide.
Boxes. Wow. Did he give totals for the whole property?
Reportedly, yes. The total quantities found were stated as 200 bottles of baby oil and 900 bottles of Astroglide.
900 bottles of Astroglide and 200 of baby oil. That is a staggering amount.
It's an extremely large quantity, over 1,000 bottles combined.
What's the potential significance of finding that much? I mean, beyond personal use, clearly.
Well, the prosecution would likely argue that the sheer scale suggests preparation for or facilitation of activities requiring large amounts of lubricant far beyond typical use. Tied into the allegations about hotel nights or forced intercourse acts, they might frame this volume as circumstantial evidence supporting claims of frequent specific activities occurring. It's the quantity that makes it notable.
Right. The scale implies something organized or routine. What about firearms? The pews.
Agent Leone testified about those too. He said they were found in the security room.
All of them in the security room. What types?
Yes, located there. He listed several: a Ruger, a Glock pistol, an AR-15 platform rifle, a Smith & Wesson rifle. That one was apparently seen on a chair with 3 30-round magazines in a bag nearby. Also, a Mossberg shotgun and a large-capacity drum magazine.
A drum magazine?
Yeah.
Holds a lot of ammo, right?
This one was a 60-round drum mag, and it reportedly contained 59 rounds. He specifically described the ammo as green tip ammunition.
Green tip. What's significant about that?
He testified it's designed to pierce body armor.
Body armor piercing rounds in a high-capacity drum magazine found with tactical-style rifles and other firearms. Did they all have serial numbers?
Most did, and they matched up where present. But he testified one long G, or long firearm, did not have a serial number. It looked like it had been sanded off, made smooth.
An obliterated serial number. That's often a red flag.
It is often associated with illegal modifications or attempts to hide a firearm's history.
So, summarizing Agent Leone's finds: illegal substances, an extraordinary amount of lubricant and baby oil, multiple firearms, including tactical types, high-capacity mags, armor-piercing ammo, and one firearm with a removed serial number, all from the search.
That covers the key items from his direct testimony. Then came the cross-examination by the defense, Mr. Ignifilo.
What was the defense trying to achieve with their questions for Agent Leone?
They seemed focused on context and maybe downplaying some findings. First, they got him to confirm Mr. Combs has security.
Okay, establishing the need for a security room.
Right. And crucially, they got Agent Leone to confirm that every single firearm and piece of ammo was found only in that security office.
Not scattered around the house?
Correct, and specifically not in any children's bedrooms. That was confirmed.
Reinforcing the idea they were secured and related to protection. What about the security room door itself? Locked.
The defense asked. Leone said it wasn't locked when he arrived, but it did have a knob lock. He didn't know if it was locked before they got there.
They also asked about the safe in the closet where the MDMA was found.
Yes. Confirmed Leone had no reason to think it was open before they arrived. Confirmed they brought a locksmith, but he didn't see that specific safe being opened. And confirmed it looked like a safe designed for holding jewels, firearms.
Did they address the lack of photos showing the safe being opened?
Yes. Leone explained the protocol. Again, the first team in SRT Secures doesn't usually film or photograph those initial actions like opening safes. Documentation comes later.
What about the lubricant and baby oil? How did the defense handle that huge quantity?
It was interesting. They asked Agent Leone if he'd ever encountered Astroglide before in his human trafficking work.
In human trafficking cases specifically?
Yes, and Leone reportedly answered, only in this case. The defense attorney apparently chuckled, but the judge stopped any further comment.
Trying to imply it's unusual even for that kind of investigation.
That seems the likely implication they were aiming for. They also had him reconfirm the locations where the oil and Astroglide were found.
And there was an odd ending to the cross.
A bit. The lawyer asked if Leone was from L.A. Enjoyed it, yes. Then started to ask something about not knowing much about pews in Manhattan, but withdrew it quickly after the judge reacted. Seemed irrelevant.
So, defense cross-focused on guns in security room only, away from kids, uncertainty about locks before arrival, questioning the typicality of the lubricant find in his specific field, trying to manage the narrative.
Precisely. Frame the firearms as security-related, raise subtle questions about other items. After Agent Leone, the government called its next witness.
Who was that?
Jonathan Perez, identified as Mr. Combs' former personal assistant.
The assistant. And he initially didn't want to testify.
That's right. The source says he initially wanted to invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination.
But he did testify. How?
The prosecution reportedly entered an immunity agreement for him. This compels him to testify, but generally protects him from his testimony being used against him criminally. It suggests the prosecution felt his information was crucial.
Okay, so he testified under immunity. What was his job like? His background?
He worked for Mr. Combs from late 2021 to September 2024, almost 3 years. Got the job via Christina Corum, interviewed with her, did a week's trial in Miami.
What were his duties?
Making sure Mr. Combs had materials for meetings, buying gifts, worked in LA and Miami. Corum was his direct supervisor. He described their relationship, Corum and Combs, as a good working one, sometimes personal too.
Long hours. Was he the only assistant?
Typical hours, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., then a night assistant took over, usually 3 or 4 assistants total. His pay started at $85K, went up to $100.
And his testimony covered these king nights.
Yes. He said he learned about them from Corum, described them as Mr. Combs going to a hotel for party time with a female.
Did he say Jane Doe was involved in these?
He did. He described Jane as Mr. Combs' female friend companion and said she accompanied him to hotels for these king nights during his employment.
What was Perez's role in setting them up? Did he arrange them?
He testified staff got notice anywhere from 2 hours to a full day. Usually the evening assistant set up, but he estimated he set up maybe 5 himself.
What did setting up involve? What did he have to bring?
He listed items, packing material, everything needed for 12, 24 hours so they wouldn't be bothered. Food, liquor, music, red lights, also rubbers, and lubricant.
Lubricant again. Anything else?
He mentioned sometimes bringing honey, said he was told it enhances a man's libido. And he testified he sometimes bought adult outfits and high heels from intercourse stores for these nights.
Using company money.
Said he used a company card or got cash from security, specifically naming him.
So his testimony paints a picture of these king nights being a routine, logistically planned part of his job involving specific supplies.
That's the process he described. He also testified about finding a video on a staff iPad.
A video? What was on it?
He said a videographer, Brandon the shooter, found it. The video apparently showed Jane and another man in an intercourse activity, and Perez testified Mr. Combs could be seen in the background of this video.
Mr. Combs was in the video, in the background.
Yeah.
Wow. What did Perez do?
He took the iPad, told Mr. Combs, told Christina Coram separately on the same day.
What were their reactions?
Mr. Combs seemed surprised, he said. Coram reportedly told him, next time find something like that, give it directly to her, he'll deal with Mr. Combs.
Trying to control the information flow again. Did anything else happen with the video?
About 6 months later, he said Coram asked him about it, how it was found. She also mentioned someone outside the company had called her about it.
So it might have leaked out, and there was a recording played.
Yes, a recording of that conversation between Coram and Perez found on her seized phone was played for the jury. Perez didn't know he was being recorded.
What did the recording capture? What could the jury hear?
Reportedly, Coram asking how he found it, Brandon found it. Who else might have been there? Maybe Gio. Coram saying, we have camera footage, suggesting surveillance.
And crucially,
Coram reportedly said she told PD, Puff Daddy, about it, and his response was, you can delete it. Perez confirmed in the audio and in court that he then deleted the video.
so audio evidence of an instruction to delete potential evidence?
That's what it appears to show. The audio also had Perez telling someone named Rob who didn't want to know, Perez suggesting an investigation, Mr. Combs worrying about being compromised, and security, Fahim, later asking Perez about the video.
That recording sounds potentially very damaging. Did Perez testify about anything else he did as part of his job?
Yes, obtaining illegal substances.
As part of his job? For whom?
He confirmed it was part of his employment, did it a handful of times, said he got them for Mr. Combs, either purchased or grabbed them from somebody outside.
What kinds of substances?
He mentioned Coena, Xanax, and Molly.
And how did he pay?
Cash. Either from security, fame again, or Mr. Combs' Gucci pouch. Texts were shown, too.
What did the text say?
One reportedly said, I need $700 for Guido for DRGS. Another mentioned waiting for funds from TriStar, the business manager, Robin Greenhill.
Texts explicitly mentioning DRGS and needing funds from the business manager. Strong corroboration for that part of his testimony.
Seems like it. He also described one specific incident involving a FaceTime call and delivering cash.
What happened there?
He dropped Mr. Combs off at Jane's house with supplies. A couple hours later, Mr. Combs FaceTimed him, looking angry and annoyed. Jane was there but turned away.
What did Mr. Combs want?
He asked Perez if another female had been on a recent trip Perez was on. Perez said no, which he testified was true. He reacted normally, he said.
Then what?
After the call, Perez told security, Fahim and KK, that Mr. Combs was arguing with his girl and he was going to pick him up.
How does this connect to Jane Doe's testimony?
Well, Jane had described a specific night, starting with a date, escalating into an argument she started about him taking another woman on a trip, then a physical fight, followed by her most serious allegations involving forced intercourse acts with another man brought to her house.
And Perez's account corroborates parts of that night.
It seems to corroborate the lead-up and immediate aftermath. His testimony about being called to pick up Mr. Combs after an argument aligns with Jane's account of the fight. And crucially, texts were shown from around that time.
What did those texts show?
One from Perez, June 20th, 2024. I need $3,500 cash ASAP for his guests. Then I'm going to take it to her.
$3,500 cash delivered to her, Jane, right after this argument and pickup.
That's what the texts in his testimony suggest. He said he didn't know why the cash was needed then, but it supports the timing and logistics Jane described around that specific alleged incident. It corroborates the framework, if not the alleged acts themselves.
Okay, very detailed testimony from the assistant. What happened during the defense cross-examination of Perez? Brian Steele handled that.
Yes, Steele seemed to have a few main goals. First, get Perez to say positive things or things helpful to the defense.
With what?
Perez stated under cross that in his nearly 3 years, he never saw Mr. Combs strike a woman or anyone.
A direct counterpoint to violence claims.
Yes. Also, Perez agreed Mr. Combs dated many women at once, but Perez said he didn't hear Jane argue with him about other women.
Trying to suggest her issues weren't just jealousy, or were mainly jealousy.
The source suggests the defense strategy here was to paint Jane as potentially more upset about jealousy regarding other relationships than necessarily about the alleged freak-offs, offering an alternative motive for conflict.
What else did the defense cover? His feelings about Mr. Combs now.
Asked his reason for leaving to avoid a situation like this.
Mhm.
Asked current feelings. Great. The same way saw him as a motivator. Couldn't recall Combs crying, even when shown a book exhibit about him being upset.
What about the firearms of the searches?
Confirmed Perez saw news of the searches. Asked if he saw pews at the LA home, 2-star, or Combs with them. Perez said no, only saw security with firearms. Agreed Combs is respected. Other celebs have security.
How did they frame the King Knights and other tasks?
Perez agreed. He sometimes called them personal nights. Agreed Combs worked long hours, business personal mixed at home, categorized setting up King Nights, getting illegal substances, buying lingerie as personal tasks, but estimated this was only about 1% of his job. Confirmed Combs wasn't tech-savvy.
And the key question about Jane's participation.
Yes, Steele asked if Jane always appeared to be a willing participant in the Wild King Nights. Objection overruled. Perez answered, yes, always.
Yes, always. Directly contradicting Jane's testimony about feeling coerced.
A major point of conflict for the jury to weigh. Again, based on Perez's observation of the logistics, not necessarily her internal state or the full context.
Did they ask about the illegal substances again?
Tried to ask about small amounts for personal use, but the objection was sustained. Perez confirmed using a company card at intercourse stores, didn't know if Combs reimbursed. Confirmed registering hotel rooms in his own name, agreeing it avoided attention.
And the defense read text between Perez and Jane.
Yes, reportedly read out during cross, exhibited under sidebar. Content showed Perez setting up a night, Jane telling him what to get, cooperating on details like avocado toast, tea, honey, with heart emojis.
So text showing her actively involved in the planning.
That's what the defense presented. Also, texts like Perez saying, I loved it, want photos. Jane saying he's looking for smoke. Perez replying, coming. Intended to show cooperation and engagement from her side in the logistics.
Providing a counter-narrative through their direct communication.
Exactly. Then the prosecution had a short redirect. Miss Miser.
What did she focus on?
Mainly reinforcing that these tasks, even getting things for Jane or setting up personal nights, were part of his job, paid for by the business structure. Confirmed getting things for Jane was his job. Didn't set up nights on vacation. Baby oil was personal but part of the job. Payments designated by Tri-State, the business, not Perez personally.
Tying it all back to the employment structure and business funding.
Seems so. And that wrapped up Jonathan Perez's testimony, which brought the court day nearly to its end.
Jury dismissed for the weekend then.
Correct. And as they were dismissed, Judge Subramanian confirmed juror number 6 was officially permanently dismissed.
Sticking by his earlier ruling. And the reason. One last time.
Inconsistencies about his residence, raising fundamental doubts about his candor, his truthfulness with the court, which undermined confidence in all his answers, making removal required.
What a day. Wrapping Jane Doe's intense testimony, legal battles over evidence and instructions, Agent Leone's detailed search findings, the substances, the huge amounts of lubricant, the firearms, then the assistant's inside look at King Knights, substance procurement, the video deletion, all capped by that juror dismissal.
It was incredibly dense, so much specific detail presented to the jury. Our deep dive using just your sources hopefully helped unpack that the allegations, the legal moves, the physical evidence, the assistant's view.
It absolutely helps get past the headlines to what the jury is actually hearing and seeing. The level of detail is something else.
It really is.
Yeah.
And thinking about all that detail, Perez describing the systematic setup for King Knights, the packing lists, buying specific items, getting illegal substances as a task, plus the sheer volume of things like lubricant found in the search. It makes you consider, doesn't it?
Consider what?
How does the apparent integration of these alleged activities and their logistics into the routine duties of an assistant, as described, suggest a level of organization? Does that scale point towards something more than just isolated events, regardless of who participated or why they might have? Something about the system itself.
That's a really sharp point to ponder the system versus the specific instances. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Day 23. We hope exploring the facts from the source material helps you form your own informed perspective.